one emotion after the other. Boom, boom, boom. One emotion came from when he held a gun to his head and said, he was going to kill himself right in front of her. That was one thing. Another thing was he burned her scriptures, burned her Bible in front of her. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that went on. And every one of these major events created another trapped emotion that was simply added to this wall. So we released the wall in about a half an hour, and she went home. For the first time in many, many years now, her protection, in a sense, was gone. Her heart wall was gone. Her body wanted it gone, but now, for the first time, she's really able to feel in her heart all the abuse, you see, that's being heaped on her. And within 2 weeks, she was out. She left, and got divorced, and her life is much better. He made the decisions that he made, and it's unfortunate, but that kind of thing happens. So anyway, in practice, after a while, I got to a point where I didn't really worry about figuring out what people's heart walls were made out of. I just found out, do you have a heart wall? If you do, can we release emotions from it? Yes, let's get rid of the emotions. Because I was already kind of out on a limb, and telling people, hey, you've got a heart wall made out of marshmallow cheese or whatever, It's a little bit odd. But I'm telling you, this is reality. I mean, your subconscious mind will create a wall. Now, what I found is about 80% of people, maybe more, have a heart wall. And what does it do? Well, the heart wall, again, it blocks our love from getting out. Remember how I told you that they've actually tested now how other people's, your heart waves, your heart energy, the biomagnetic field of your heart can actually be detected in another person's brain waves if you're anywhere within proximity to them, even several feet away. You see, but if you've got a heart wall, I think what we're going to find is that the heart wall interferes with that energy passing out. So some of the other cases that I saw were very interesting. I remember a woman who came in. She brought her son in, actually, to see me because his grades were abysmal. He was hanging out with the wrong crowd. He was very angry, very angry. He came in, and I remember he had a mohawk haircut that I think was orange, as I recall. And he was very angry. And I started testing him, and sure enough, he did have a heart wall. And his heart wall was made of trapped emotions that had occurred about his father. His mother and father had gotten divorced a number of years before, and it was very difficult for him. And he really had a lot of anger towards his father about this, and he couldn't stand his father, couldn't stand to be around him. I mean, literally hated his father, his birth father. Well, it took us a couple of weeks of working and releasing these emotions, and the change that took place with him was really amazing. I mean, his haircut even changed. His grades started to go up. And the last time that I saw him, he had just been on a weekend camping trip with his birth father, and he was so happy and so excited. It was an amazing thing. Well, his mother also had a lot of anger about the same thing, about her ex-husband. And, sorry, she had kind of a grim look, her jaw just was kind of set in iron, and I tested her. She had a trapped emotion as well, or a heart wall actually, a number of trapped emotions, also about her ex-husband. So we released those trapped emotions and got rid of her heart wall. And a couple of months after this, she comes into the office and she says, I'm kind of disappointed, frankly, because she said, my son has, his life has really changed from getting rid of his heart wall. But she says, my heart wall, you release my heart wall, and I don't really feel any different. And I said, well, sometimes people have changes that take place right away when a heart wall is removed. Sometimes, we've had people come back to us who have said that when their heart wall is removed for the first time in their life, they can feel God's love for them. People fall in love, get married. Sometimes it's right away. But I said, sometimes it's a process of healing, and sometimes it can take some time. You just don't know. But I said, just hang in there, and I think things are going to work out for you. Well, I didn't see her again. She didn't come back in. A year later, I was at a very upscale department store in Orange County. And this woman came up to me, and she starts talking to me. And it was her, but I didn't recognize her because she completely changed. Her countenance had changed. She didn't have the grim look anymore. Jaw wasn't set in iron anymore. She looked completely different. And finally, as we talked, it dawned on me who this was. And it was amazing, the transformation. Well, she told me that she was married now. She'd fallen in love with a very wealthy man, And she worked now at this store that I was in, and her whole life had changed. And we talked a little bit about it, and you know, she didn't know if getting her heart wall removed had helped or not, and I didn't know either. But you know, I left that conversation wondering, you know, where she would have been if we hadn't removed her heart wall. I remember another case where a young woman came in who was she was actually a nurse. She was about 38 years old, and as I was giving taking a history on her, she told me that she had no interest. I asked her if she was married or dating anyone or what was going on in her life, and she said that she had no interest in dating men. That she just had no interest. She was single and she was going to stay single. She wasn't going to date. That was it, which was a little bit surprising because she was very attractive, and people are happier when they're in relationships, and we're designed to not really live alone. We're designed to be together with someone. So what I found out as I got to know her a little bit was that she had a bad relationship about 8 years before. This man that she was involved with had just dumped her, and it was very heartbreaking for her. And she had a heart wall. She had 3 emotions that made up this heart wall. And we were able to clear those out in fairly short order. They all had to do with this guy who had dumped her 8 years before. And then I didn't see her for a while. Now, by the way, she came in with neck trouble. And she'd had several doctors look at her, and they couldn't really seem to figure out. It was even a little bit mysterious. Well, it all had to do with her heart wall, see? She came in because the heart wall will tend to cause physical symptoms too, as well as emotional difficulties. So about 2 months later, she comes back in the office. And I said, hey, how are you doing? How are things going? And she says, my whole life has improved so much. It's just, it's amazing. She said, when you cleared that heart wall on me, she said, that really worked. Because she said, my neck pain has been gone for a long time since you did that. But also, she said, a week or so after you released those energies, those trapped emotions, I found out that my childhood sweetheart has been living around the corner from me for about 8 years. And she said, we got together and we've been dating this whole time, and I think he's going to ask me to marry him. Now, do you think that she would have been open to that? See, he'd been living there for 8 years, and she never even saw him. Think about that. 8 years. She was so blocked. See, her heart was blocked to love, see. She couldn't give it out. She couldn't receive it. So, anyway, there are many other stories about the heart wall. But that's what the heart wall, that's what this work is really about. The core of this work is really this wall that people develop around their heart. Now, most people do have a heart wall. And, when people commit acts of violence on other people, do you think maybe they have a wall that they can't feel anymore? Yeah. There's an awful lot of that goes on. And the world can change. The world literally can change as we remove the walls that are around our hearts. Because you see, we communicate with each other, love, through our hearts. But when people's hearts are blocked, they've got these energetic walls around them. I mean, think about it. Most of the population's walking around literally with a wall around their heart. You've heard people say, oh, I was in a bad situation, I had to put up a wall around myself. Right? Well, that's a literal thing that happens. So, you ready? Let's take a look here and just see. How you can find out if a person has a heart wall, well, how do you think? You ask, right? Okay. So let's get a baseline. My name is Steve. Okay, we press and he's strong. My name is Bob. Okay, and he's nice and weak there, so we know he's testable. Let's just ask, do you have a heart wall?
Do I have a heart wall?
Yep. And his body says yes, he does have a heart wall. Now, it's important to also ask, can we release an emotion from your heart wall now? Okay. Sometimes people are not ready to release and get rid of this wall. Maybe they're still in a bad situation, or maybe for some reason they're not ready to go. You've got to honor that, right? You've got to honor that. So you just simply ask. You don't ever want to force anything. You just ask, can we release an emotion from your heart wall now? And his body says, absolutely. Yeah, let's get rid of one. Okay. Now, the interesting thing that you'll notice is, okay, when a person has a heart wall, the heart wall will generally be a certain size. And sometimes I've seen them paper thin to, many miles, hundreds, thousands of miles thick, even more. I remember my son Joseph, who now is 13 years old, when he was about 6, I think it was, he had this habit of saying, I can't. Whenever anyone would ask him to do anything, he would say, I can't. He would kind of cry about it. We tested him. He had a heart wall. It was a sheet of paper around his heart.